welcome. Just wait for you to connect to your audio and video. Oh, there's Nigel.
Hi there,
Welcome,
Nigel.
and Andrina. You're in the right place. There's two of you that have joined us so far. Uh, oh, looks like Andrina. There we go.
Yeah. Oh, there she is. Great.
Greetings.
Good afternoon, Simon.
Yeah. Hi, Nigel. I'm trying to work out where we've met. I knew the name.
We met at a Fresh Expressions conference somewhere.
Swanwick, probably.
Swanwick, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm now looking out over the sea in Grenada.
Oh, very nice. Is that where you are permanently, or?
Yeah, I am. I'm here for 3 years as a mission partner with the Council for World Mission.
Oh,
Brilliant.
wow. Fantastic.
That's
Fantastic.
great.
Lucky you.
It's an amazing view, but sometimes quite frustrating the pace of things happening.
Yeah, nothing happens in a hurry. Because my wife was born in Barbados.
Okay.
Nothing happens in a hurry in the West Indies.
No.
So, welcome. My name's Simon Goddard. I head up FX resourcing within the Fresh Expressions movement. And Mike Moyner's joining us. Mike Moyner's the brains behind the Sharing Jesus resource, as well as a number of other things that Fresh Expressions does. Mike, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a Church of England minister. Had a parish in the led a parish in the early 90s in the southwest. Been involved with Fresh Expressions for the last 20 years or so. Written various books about these new forms of church. Researched them, supported them, been advocates for them, act as consultants to an initiative to support new forms of church in the Church of England, and also consultant to the New Congregations Programme here in the Oxford Diocese. I'm based in Oxford.
That's great. So actually, it might be a good idea just to, seeing as there's only three of us. Welcome, Shahid. So Nigel has explained that he's in Grenada at the moment. I'm guessing, what's the time? Is it sort of midday, middle of the afternoon in Grenada?
It's just 3:30 here.
Yeah. Well, so Nigel's there. Whereabouts are you, both Andrina and Palmer? Just a little introduce yourself, seeing as we're such a small group this evening. Andrina, you go first.
I am in Oxford, I am in Headington, and I am a Church Army evangelist in training, currently working for a United Reformed Church, and I'm freezing.
Well, Andrina, you're just up the road from me. I'm in central Oxford, in the St Ebbs part of Oxford, just near the ice rink.
I've got a nephew that lives in Headington, so there we go. And Shahid, where are you joining us from?
Hi everyone, my name is Shahid. Basically, I'm from Pakistan, but living and working in Derby. We have a heart for disciple making in Pakistan. We have a team, and we are involved in small group discipleship and disciple making movements in Pakistan.
Great,
Exciting.
Great. We won't mention Test cricket or anything like that, Shahid.
Just don't say anything, you know. I stopped watching from long time, but I used to watch the highlights. But it was amazing match today.
It's been amazing all the way through, actually. Both teams have been fantastic.
Yeah, it's fantastic cricket. Yeah.
Great. So this workshop is all about the Sharing Jesus resource, which if I'm going to share some slides just as we introduce this, Mike and I will talk a bit about the background to the resource. Then I'm going to show you some videos from the resource, and then we're going to have a conversation about it. So let me just bring up the slideshow. So hopefully you can see that. If you haven't seen the website yet, there is the website URL, sharingjesus.life. And we encourage you to, after the workshop this evening, to go and spend some time looking at the resource. And Mike, do you want to introduce, because if we place this within the sort of the work of Fresh Expressions, do you want to just introduce this diagram and then talk about where the resource fits in it?
Yeah, I mean, the Sharing Jesus resource is an evangelism resource, not so much for one-to-one evangelism, but for people who are starting little groups of people who don't go to church, or lead groups of people who don't go to church and want to encourage them to explore the Christian faith for themselves as a group. So very often these groups start with 2 or 3 or perhaps 4 or 5 Christians listening to the context, asking God, how can we love in a practical way the people around us? And so they may start an activity of love. It could be a coffee morning, a luncheon club. It might be a bereavement group. It might be a walking group. But there's an activity of love that draws people together. And as people gather around this sort of activity, this waterhole, if you like, they keep coming back and community forms. And then in the context of this community, the question arises, how can we share Jesus? And this resource that we're talking about today is to help people in that context of a community that's formed. People don't go to church. How can we share Jesus with them? And then our hope and prayer is that as people begin to discover Christ, they become an expression of church or worshiping community where they are. They don't necessarily go to church on Sunday. Increasingly, the gap between church and the rest of the world is so great that it's really hard for people to come on Sunday morning. They don't identify with the culture. They're doing other things on Sunday morning and so on. So instead, they form a little worshiping community where they are in the midst of their everyday lives. And then at their best, they repeat the process. So that's the little journey that we're finding, that more and more new expressions of church are traveling. And Share Jesus fits into that little journey.
That's great. And yeah, there we go. This is where this particular resource fits in that missional journey. This is what, when you go to the website, sharingjesus.life, you'll find there are 7 units, as it were, 7 different sections. Under introducing it, there's a bit of the background, but the 7 units: starting, discussing, discovering, questioning, disagreeing, deepening, enriching. And there's a quick look at the what you'll find on the website there. Just a note that you can join our mailing list. You may well have already done that if you've been signed up to this, but you can get other Fresh Expressions resources and information as well if you join the mailing list on the website. And each of these units, this is what you'll see in the starting unit. You'll see an animation, which we're going to play for you in a minute. Then below each animation, there's a place to click for you to download a PDF guide. So the animations are not designed to give you all of the information. They're only 1.5 minutes each. We always recommend that you take the guide, and there's a lot more information there to read. And yeah, do download the PDF guide. And at the there's an example of a PDF guide. I think this is probably one of the longer ones. I think, Mike, I think they're normally 2 sides or 3 sides. This one's a 4-side PDF, but you can get to see more of the information in each unit. And then at the bottom of each page, there's a story, and that's someone who has implemented what we've talked about in the guide and in the animation, and just sharing their experiences of what they've done, just to sort of see what it looks like in practice. Mike, before I share the long animation compilation, is there anything else you want to say before I do that?
No, I think that covers it. I would just really encourage you, if you were going to just look at one of those topics, I would start with the discovering topic, and I would read definitely for that one the PDF guide, because it contains so many other ideas. So you know, we don't want you trapped into just one way of doing things. We want you to feel that there are lots of different possibilities, and we've tried to share those possibilities, not for you to copy so much, but to inspire you, and you can adapt them and so on.
Great. So I'm going to show you, it's about 10 or 11 minutes. This is a compilation of all 7 of the animations, just one after the other. And do feel free to make some notes or write any questions down that watching the animations might stir up for you. And then what we'll do afterwards, we'll ask you a couple of questions, and then we'll have a sort of a time of discussing some responses to those questions. So let me just share the screen again and play, if I can find it. Here we go.
Maybe you're involved in an outreach project with people who don't go to church, a bereavement support group, for example, or a group that meets for lunch. It's dead easy to add a spiritual dimension and introduce them to a fuller life. All are made to feel welcome whether they choose to take part in this or not, so here's an example of what you can do. Invite those who wish to stay on after the meeting. Gather round 1 or 2 tables. Light some candles. Play some Christian music. Read a story from the Bible or an extract from a collection of Christian spiritual writings. Allow time for silent prayer or reflection. Read a couple of prayers or make up your own. Just 15 minutes max. You could do something like this with almost any outreach initiative. A craft group, a lunch for people who are homeless, a youth group, a community cafe, and more. So why not enhance what you already offer? Why not give people a chance to explore a richer life? No one is compelled to join in, but for those who do, they'll be nourished in their spiritual growth.
Want to share the Christian faith but talking about Jesus would be a step too far? Try Conversations with a Difference. Choose a topic that interests the group, a news item, a celebrity, well-being, a soap opera, your pets, sport, a music genre, anything the group would like to discuss. Talk about it for a while. Then ask the question that turns it into a different kind of conversation. If God exists, what would God think? Or if you prefer, imagine a great spiritual teacher dropped in. What would they say? Imagine a walking group. When you stop for a drink or a meal, start a conversation with a difference. Invite someone to suggest a topic. After a while, ask the question that makes the conversation different. If God exists, or if a great spiritual teacher dropped in, what would they say? You could do this with young people at your Messy Church activity table, with your neighbours, with any group. Want this to feel natural? See the written resource for ideas. People would become more confident in talking about spirituality. They would connect spirituality to life, and they would have fun.
Looking for an easy way to share the Christian faith? Invite people to a spirituality group. You might explain, Jesus is known as one of the world's greatest spiritual teachers. Let's look at some of the stories about him and see what we think. For each story, use Bible Talk. Ask 4 questions. If this story happened today, what would it look like? What is it saying to me? Could it make a difference to my life? If so, how? Did it make a difference? If so, how? You could look at the first 3 questions in one session, or you could do them over 3 sessions to keep each session short. Then do an experiment. See if the story does make a difference to people's lives. The key word is experiment. Some experiments bear fruit, others don't. That's life. So don't let people worry about whether the experiment works or not. In the next session, share your experiences. Christians involved can relax, because the Bible does the evangelism. All they have to do is join in. No embarrassment, just authentic conversation. Anyone can take part.
Worried that when using Bible Talk, people will ask you a question and you won't know the answer? Or that they'll think your answer is stupid? Solution: there's no need to answer their questions. If they ask a factual question like, who was John the Baptist? Invite them to Google the answer. If it's a question of opinion, like, what about all the suffering in the world? Ask, from what you know about Jesus so far, what do you think he would say? And join in the discussion yourself. Don't worry about people getting the wrong answer, and don't think you need to correct what they say. You may end up discouraging them. If our place in heaven depended on right answers, none of us would get there. We are saved by grace, not by right answers. Just affirm whatever you can in their response. Overlook what you disagree with, and focus on what's most important, connecting them with Jesus. So don't worry about controversial questions. Simply reply, from what you know about Jesus so far, what do you think he would say? You'll be promoting the best spiritual habit of all, relating life to Christ.
When you explore the Christian faith with inquirers who don't go to church, some people are bound to disagree with you and with each other. Don't worry. Disagreement is part of the Christian life. Indeed, the church's 2,000 years of argument. Here's what you might do. Imagine someone in the group says something provocative. Suggest people prayerfully or thoughtfully consider their responses and then share what comes to them. Make it easy to remain silent if someone prefers to listen. Encourage people not to correct, but listen to each other. Remind them that the church is full of different views, and this variety can offer a broader glimpse of God. Suggest that after people have shared their reactions, the group has another brief silence. Then take it in turns for people, if they wish, to say where they have seen godly love in others' responses. Someone's smile, an encouraging expression on a person's face, someone leaning forward to listen, what someone else said. Then let the discussion move on. People will have spoken honestly, everyone will have been heard, no one will have been judged, World War III won't have broken out, and you'll have shown a Christian way to handle disagreement. In the middle of conflict, people will have listened to God.
What might you do after you've introduced people to Jesus? Say you have used Bible Talk as described in Discovering. How might you help inquirers go deeper? Here's a possibility. Before the group meets, point one or two people to content you've prayerfully considered, such as a blog, podcast or video that explains the Bible story, gives some background information or suggests how the story applies today. The investigators share what they've learnt before the discussion starts. The group is now accessing wisdom from the church at large. Members rely on the Spirit to work through the Bible, the group as it discusses the Bible passage, experience as people describe their experiences of applying the story, and the wider body as members of the group access Christian resources on the web. One more thing, don't forget to pass around the leadership. When people help to lead, it becomes their group. Sharing leadership generates commitment. Even young children can lead a Bible discussion. An example of this and other great ideas are found elsewhere in this Sharing Jesus resource.
How do you turn an inquirers group into a worshipping community? Well, if you use Bible Talk or something similar, you're halfway there. At the beginning or the end of the discussion, why not light a candle? Perhaps play appropriate music or allow 2 or 3 minutes of silent headspace. Encourage people to think positive thoughts for a loved one or a situation in the news, or to reflect on one thing from the Bible discussion. Then invite them to address their thoughts to God as they currently understand the divine. Or else suggest people write a prayer or bring one and read it out. Look for creative gifts and passions within the group. Might someone bring an object to spark a prayer? Might others offer a poem they've selected or written? Might some of the group take photographs to illustrate a theme? Might some be inspired to write tweets or emails as a way of turning their prayers into action? Why not encourage takeaways, asking people to write a social media post or draw a picture expressing what they think God was saying during the gathering? Bit by bit, Bible discussion would expand into richer worship.
Great. So those are all the animations from the Sharing Jesus resource. Let me just go to give me a second. I'm just going to put up some questions for you, and then it'll be up to you to have a bit of a conversation. So,
and just while Simon's doing that, a reminder that alongside each of the animation, there's a PDF you can read for other ideas, but there's also a little video, 1.5 to 2 minute video of someone who sort of introduced worship or used silence as a way of dealing with conflict, or, you know, introduced Bible Talk and so on. So there's a sort of a little story alongside of the animation.
so let me put these questions up, and what I might suggest is that we send you into a breakout group, just the 3 of you. So take a look at these questions, and then if you go away and chat about these for about sort of 10 minutes, and we'll come back, and then we'll have a conversation based on your answers to these questions and based on some of the questions you might have from the resource. So let me share these questions with you, and then I'll post them in your breakout group when you go there as well. So what challenges have you found when sharing Jesus? And we're not just talking about using the resource here, just generally when you've been seeking to do evangelism. What challenges have you found? What ways have you found to be fruitful in sharing Jesus? And any questions you might have about the resource. So what challenges have you found? What are the fruitful ways that you found to share Jesus? And any questions you might have on the Sharing Jesus resource. So let me just stop sharing that for a bit now, and we'll put you in a breakout group. Bear with me a second. So let's send you there for 10 minutes to talk about those 3 questions, and I'll send the questions to you in the breakout group. So see you in about 10 minutes. So welcome back. Hope you had a good conversation in your groups. And yeah, so things that have challenges that you found when sharing Jesus, things that have been fruitful when you've been sharing Jesus, or questions that about the resource that have been prompted by watching the video. What's left of this time together is us engaging with those questions, and you asking Mike questions and us just sharing together now. So feel free. So it'd be good to hear what you were talking about, and anything that arises from your time together and the animations that you've watched. So who's going to go first? Go on, somebody.
Okay, I'll go first.
Shahid. Thank you, Shahid.
I'll jump first. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I just raised the question, the challenges of personally I'm facing. So I said, I'm involved in a ministry in Pakistan. So as Pakistan is a Muslim country, so it's a very difficult to share, about Jesus with the non-Christians. Even sometimes hard for the Christians as well. They are not, as the sharing Jesus source, especially for the people who are not going to church. And we find so many times during the sports outreach, and when we go in the playgrounds, and we met so many people, and we found challenging there. But the biggest challenge for me or the team for us is just how we can share Jesus with Muslims in Pakistan. So that's the biggest challenge for me.
Mm. Yeah, it's a very different context here, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
And Shahid, are you over in this country at the moment? Is that right? You're on a Church Army course, is that right?
That's
No.
me.
Oh, that's you. Oh, got it. Okay, thank
but
you.
Shahid, you're in Derby, you said, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, I'm in Derby.
UK. Yeah.
Oh, so what are you doing in Derby?
I work in. I'm married with a Romanian. So before I was living in Cyprus. So before 2 years, we moved to UK. So I'm working currently it's a Christian organization. I'm working as a support worker, and we provide support and accommodation to homeless.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
But on the part of this, in my free days, I'm involved in a ministry in Pakistan. So we are working in the disciple making movements, and we're just trying to help ordinary common people to disciple them and to send them in the community. So we are working on the both. We have heart for the unreached people, and we have especially for the Christians who are away from the church. And totally, I'm an ordinary person. So how God changed my life. So I'm just trying to help people. So God can use them as even they are ordinary, even they are sinful.
Mm-hmm. Mike, I don't know if you've got a response. I know I'm thinking about the spiritual conversation idea that you talk about, which so it's not, as it were, directly talking about Jesus, but if the how can you make this a conversation with a difference, and asking if God exists, if there was a spiritual teacher, almost beginning in that place rather than sometimes I guess in those conversations with Muslims, the opening of the conversation is possibly the hard thing. And having ask them a question about if there was a spiritual teacher, or if God was part of this conversation, what would he say? They might then reply and ask you similar thing, and then there might be an opportunity for you to talk about, well, the God that I know, Jesus, might say this or what have you. But I don't know. That's the only sort of response that from this resource I think comes to my mind.
I think, Shahid, I think in this country, I mean, I can't talk for Pakistan, obviously, but I think in this country, if I was working with a Muslim population or something, the first step would be to find a way of practically loving them. So, finding accommodation for people who are homeless is obviously an expression of love, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'd be engaging them. It might be that they're folks who've recently arrived to England who are wanting to learn English and improve their English. And we've had a number of examples of language cafes who've been run by churches. So I'll be, encouraging them to come together around that activity of love, to have these conversations, chat together, form community. And then I think, if it was a language cafe, for example, I'd be encouraging them to practice their English as they just have coffee and tea together, and give them a topic to discuss. and I might include in that some, spiritual topics, or I might just say, which is conversation with a difference. Let's talk about a sport, what's been happening in the cricket, or let's talk about a celebrity or a film or mental health or issue in the news, whatever it's interesting to people. Let's talk about this. And then I might say to them halfway through, just imagine that God existed and God dropped in, or imagine that a spiritual guru dropped in. What would they say about the topic? And that encourages people to connect what's interesting to them with the thought, gosh, what would God say about it? And this can happen quite amusingly. I always give the example of a dog walking group in Florida. And during lockdown, they couldn't walk their dogs. And so they all came on Zoom and they showed their dogs to each other and waved their paws at one another. And then they chatted about pet care and all the rest. And then the convener of the group said, just imagine that God exists. What breed of dog would he have? And yeah, exactly. They all laugh, you see, it's great. And then you just have a laughter conversation, but it's getting people to think, wow, we can talk about God in relation to dogs. And you can do that in relation to films or books or issues in the news. One youth worker said she was going to do it with her teenagers, and she would just have two tables in the middle of the room. They play their games and so on, but instead of a little talk, she'd get them to sit around these tables. One table would have the label Love Island on it, and the other table would have a name of a celebrity. And she'd get them just to talk about what was going on in Love Island and the TV series, what was going on in the life of the celebrity. And then halfway through, after 5 minutes, she'd say, just imagine God exists, or a spiritual guru dropped in. What would they say about the topic? And she just said, this is so easy to do. So I'm, depending on who it is, I might be doing that as a first step.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. It's really very helpful. And I think these are the resources which you shared with me. That is really helpful. And some of them I tried in when I was in Cyprus. So I was used to invited Sikh friends and Muslim friends, and we had every Wednesday we had meal. And so through this relationship, I was just opening a conversation, and God, they brought fruit as well. So, but yeah, as you said, give some suggestions as well. I will definitely work here in my at my workplace as well, and also the people are involved in Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Well, God bless.
Any other questions, comments that come out of those, your breakout group or the animations? Go on, Andrina, have you got?
From the notes that I made, it was really useful to speak to Shahid and Nigel, so thanks for that time. But it was a 15-minute max for the sort of spiritual conversation. And I thought that was interesting, because I would sort of say 10 to 15 to try, and if you're just starting something, to try and keep it limited as well. But a lot of people think, no, you've got to do a whole hour. And I think, no, you've got to make it as natural as you can if you're just introducing people. So I was glad that we were on the same wavelength there. And I'm looking forward to looking at the discovering section, because again, that's about helping people become more confident. Part of my role is to help our congregation to become more confident. So that's going to be really good. And I'm looking forward to looking at the Bible Talk 4 questions. So that would be good. What I've just said was challenges are that people that listen to argue, or just don't listen whatsoever. They're just not interested to even have a conversation. They're just not there at all. And I'm trying to be as polite and as, what's going on in Love Island? I don't, but there's a little thing on the TV at the moment with some men on a green carpet, and they're doing something with this round white thing in the middle of the and trying to drop these conversations in, and what, are you enjoying this, and blank. And I think it's just, humans just
Yeah, I
either
think
blanks, or it's that the place, you're a Christian, you shouldn't watch football. Really?
so.
Okay.
So, Andrina, I mean, I think you're right, and about the limited time, having things that are short, and these Bible talk questions. You can take the same Bible passage over 4 weeks, and you read it, just a story about Jesus, a parable he told or an event in his life, and you just read it, and then you just ask one of those questions. You take them in a sequence. If the story happened today, what would it look like? And you just talk about it for 10 minutes, and that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
And then you repeat the story the next time and ask the second question, and then the third, and then the fourth. So this is the brilliant thing about it, is you can do very short little Bible studies. So, for example, if you've got a cafe with people coming who don't normally come to church, you can set up a little spirituality zone and say, we're going to have a little bit of spirituality here if you want to stay behind. And you can say, look, Jesus is known as one of the world's greatest spiritual teachers. Let's explore some of the stories he told. And then all you have to do is to look at one story every 4 weeks, over 4 weeks, and ask the 4 questions and get them to start talking about it. And so it becomes a very short, very practical thing to do. But this is a resource to be used with people who are outside the church.
Yeah.
And that's the point of it. It's a mission resource. But if I had a group of people, I might be saying to them, why don't you choose a topic that we can talk about? And the only rule is it's got to be a topic that's going to be interesting to other people. So you choose a topic, first one to email me with the topic gets the choice. And then, you could be saying, and I'll make it a conversation with a difference by asking halfway through, if God existed or a spiritual guru dropped in, what would they say?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Andrina, the hunger to have those conversations would be more, as Mike says, these are sort of for people outside of the church, and you'll probably find people more wanting to talk about spiritual things outside the church than sometimes inside the church. And you talked about confidence as well, and I think there is this thing that sort of disempowers Christians because they think they have to have all the answers before they begin talking about it. And what Mike's been talking about, the sort of the Bible talk, they just need to remember 4 questions, and that's the extent of it. They don't need to remember any answers because they're not going to give any answers. They're just asking questions. And I think that the confidence is, we often think, I'm not confident enough in my faith, but actually the confidence just comes from knowing what the 4 questions are and going from there, I think. So I think it is a challenge, I think, with trying to sort of replicate this. Some people do Alpha within the church as a sort of practice run, and I'm not sure this works as a practice run because people in the church are used to giving answers and right answers and all of that, and I think you'll probably find it works better, as Mike says, with people outside of the church. So, Nigel, what about yourself? You got a question or comment or?
I was saying before that I was looking out for the video as to whether it included images of Black people, and it does. So that in the I wasn't sure about the. Obviously, I haven't seen the other part of the resource, whether there are in that as well, because where in my context most people are not white, so it's always trying to find images that are appropriate. Which is quite important. Yeah,
there's Grace. Grace Sentamu is one of the people who tells her story. So there is in the story bit as well. Is a diversity
Yeah.
in there as well.
Yeah, she tells a story about how she's introduced worship. So it's right at the end of the in the last topic, enriching. She's done a little video about how she introduced worship into the group that she led. So she comes obviously from an African background.
The other question for me, I suppose, is I'm chaplain to 2 schools, a primary and a secondary school here. And so I get opportunity to do assemblies, but then that's sometimes about it, particularly in the secondary school. So I have quite a lot of informal conversations with students. So some of what the 4-question idea, I think, is going to be quite useful to just think about how to utilize those questions. So I often have questions about what they've been doing in school and things like that, but occasionally we will branch into a Christian question, or a God question, but we haven't done that very much. So this will be quite useful, I think.
Nigel, would you ever have an opportunity to draw together a group of people who meet regularly at a particular time? I'm just thinking in the I think in the second topic, discovering or whatever, or discussing, in the topic on discussing, there's Laura who does a little video, and she talks about how she got a group of 12 teenagers together, and she'd give them mugs of hot chocolate and they would just chat together, and she'd get them to talk about the high spot in the week and the low spot in the previous week. And they didn't go to church, but what she did was, after each person has shared, she got 2 of the other teenagers with her to pray for the person who'd shared. And the teenagers just loved it, and they felt 12 foot high. And so I can imagine as kind of a group where you just get together and have a little bit of food and hot drink, and then just say, we're just going to, encourage and support each other, in our weeks. What were the great spots last week? What were the difficulties? And then you pray for each other.
Yeah. I mean, I did. I am running a youth group, but it's a sort of like 10 to 14 age group, and they're quite boisterous, is the word, I suppose. So we're just kind of establishing the group in some ways. So potentially that could happen, I think. And we had a good discussion last week with not so many. I've had about 18 to 20 all on my own, and I've struggled with
that's tough.
some of the some of the behaviours and some of the accents as well. I struggle sometimes in understanding all the accents at different stages. So that's been a bit of a challenge for me. But the last week we only had 8 in the group, and I think that worked really well.
One thing that Mike says in the first, or is in the animation of the first video, is that there's a group where those that are invited to stay, and people can leave at the end of it, and there might be just a handful, 3 or 4, that want to talk, and then you're not sort of battling the crowd control. You've got people who want to be there. And that
the question I posed in the group about that was particularly making sure that you've got somebody who can spend time to say goodbye to the people that are going, so they don't feel rejected when you're trying to gather the other part of the group. So and that's a bit of that would be a challenge for me at the moment with just me. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. And then there's also the issue of people staying on when they're maybe expected back at home at some stage, particularly with the age groups that I've got. But it's possible. But and I did try within the secondary school to set up a kind of lunchtime after school group, but that's been a bit of a struggle, getting the support from the school. They say yes, but it doesn't carry through, if that makes sense. It's
Nigel, what Laura did with her group was she had a spoon, and the person who's holding the wooden spoon got to speak.
Yeah.
And then she would get the rowdy ones. The most rowdy ones were the ones that she got to pray.
Right.
So that's how she managed her crowd control. I think, you know, I mean, you're really brave to do it on your own. I think she did it on her own. This was several years ago. She wouldn't do that now because of all the safeguarding issues.
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't choose to do it, and the original plan was there was supposed to be 2 other adults that helped him, but they didn't really materialize. And in Grenada, unfortunately the safeguarding process, so I wouldn't be able to do it in the UK.
Yeah, no, but you probably can do it in Grenada. But you know,
I mean, people do their own thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got another person to join you, then of course you could break. You had 18, you can break them into 2 groups of 9, can't you? And it becomes a bit more manageable. But yeah, I think you're brave to do it on your own. I'm full of admiration.
Well, or stupidity, one or the other. I'm hoping that the group will settle. And the other slight problem is that some of the ones that are coming, I do some individual counselling and some individual mentoring with students from the school, and the school have referred some of them to me because of difficult behaviour within the classroom. So I know that they're a challenge within the classroom anyway, let alone when I have them in a group. So yeah.
Right. Wow.
But some of the ideas, some of the questions, I think are going to be quite useful. So thank you. I will look at those.
Yeah, the experiment idea, I just love that. You know, it's like, well, let's see if it makes a difference. And you know, yeah, I can imagine that going well in some contexts. So any other questions or comments? We're coming up, we've almost been online an hour together. So but anything else you want to ask before we draw this to a close?
I think the questions, so the other part of my work, I visit, you know, so when I arrived here, it was in COVID, and they're in a second lockdown. So I did loads of walking around the community and meeting people outside and stuff like that. So I have meet people and pray for them at different stages. But sometimes as I was saying to the group, as a church minister, I'm used to doing preaching and leading services and leading assemblies and stuff like that. And I'm not so brilliant at bringing in the sharing Jesus in the informal, in the less formal structural stuff. So some of this will be quite useful to me.
Sounds great.
Yeah. And the opportunities for being outside are a lot more in Grenada than they are in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to visit people who are shut in, or a lot. What would you call it in the UK? Housebound, but they call it shut in here. And just play some music on the veranda or outside, and then everybody's going past, listening to the music and singing along to some of the hymns that we're singing or whatever. So that's it's been quite an amazing opportunity to do that, really.
Great. Anything else anyone wants to say or ask? Or
no, I'm just looking forward to having a proper look and printing it off and seeing how much conversations I can have in McDonald's.
Fantastic.
I set up we used to call it Questions About God, and we've done it in a local pub in Wimbledon, and then we did it in McDonald's in East Ham. And I just set up a table. I sat in there, and then anybody could come along and ask questions. Not many people did, but I did have a few really interesting conversations in McDonald's.
Yeah, we've got a Wetherspoons ministry like that here in March. So any excuse. So great. If there's no more questions, I don't want to. We are at an hour, and I don't want to rush people away. But if we're at an end, let me pray for you guys as you go away and do this. And Mike and I were just talking while you were in your group. We were talking about the fact that we're going to keep doing these workshops each month next year. And you know, if you try something and it works, or you try something and it doesn't work, come back and tell us how it's gone, and it'd be another opportunity to chat with people. It'd be good. So, Mike, any closing thoughts before I pray?
No, it's been great having you. I mean, if you find this has been helpful, if you want to just write a comment in the chat facility that we can use when we advertise the next workshop, that would be brilliant. Just a sentence, that would be fantastic, and then we'd use that when we advertise the next one. But it's great seeing you, and yeah, fantastic. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and if you don't get an opportunity to, sorry, Shahid, go on.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, if you don't get an opportunity to put it in the chat box tonight, a comment, then I sent you an email earlier today, so do just reply to that email with a comment, and it'd be good to be able to use that in our promotion of future workshops. Shahid, what were you going to say? Sorry, before I
Just want to say thank you for this opportunity. It's really great to be with you all, and with the the Andrea and the Nigel. We just had through their experiences and through their challenges, learned especially from your responses. That's good to have here tonight.
Yeah, brilliant.
Oh, this was good. Yes, thank you. I agree. Thank you.
Great. Let me pray for you. Father, we want to thank you for who you are. Thank you for the good news of who you are and what you've done, and for opportunities that we get to share you with others. And Father, we thank you for this resource. We thank you for those that have engaged with it, and for the learning that it provides. And I just want to pray for Nigel, for Shahid and Andrina, as they take ideas and insights from the Sharing Jesus resource and use it in their context. Father, pray for each of them, and it seems that each of them have an opportunity as well to equip and encourage others to do the same. And so I pray for them that you would be in that you would be in their own sharing of you with others, and their equipping of others to share you too. Pray that you would bless them, and as they invite people to encounter you, they would see lives transformed. We ask this in your name and for your glory. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Great to see you all. Bless. Go on.
Great to see you.
Simon, I think it was also I'm part of the Congregational Federation's Fresh Expression group, and I think you came along to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. That's right. I remember that conversation. Brilliant. Let me press stop on the recording.